Lawrence and Oppenheimer. The scientific panel offered its opinion not just on the likely physical effects of an atomic bomb, but on its probable military and political impact. 283. At the Potsdam Conference in Germany, Truman was informed that the Trinity test had been successful. He told Stalin, the leader of the Soviet Union, that the US had a new superweapon, without giving any details. This was the first official communication to the Soviet Union about the bomb, but Stalin already knew about it from spies. 284. With the authorization to use the bomb against Japan already given, no alternatives were considered after the Japanese rejection of the Potsdam Declaration. 285. Bombings. On the 6th of August, 1945, the Enola Gay, a Boeing B-29 Superfortress of the 393d Bombardment Squadron, piloted by Tibets, lifted off from Northfield with a little boy in its bomb bay. Hiroshima, the headquarters of the 2nd General Army and 5th Division and a port of embarkation, was the primary target, with Kokyura and Nagasaki as alternatives. Parsons, the weaponeer in charge of the mission, completed the bomb assembly in air to minimize the risks of a nuclear explosion in the event of a crash during takeoff. 286. The bomb detonated at an altitude of 1,750 feet, 530 m, with a blast that was later estimated to be the equivalent of 13 kilotons of TNT. 287. An area of approximately 4.7 square miles, 12 square kilometers, was destroyed. Japanese officials determined that 69% of Hiroshima's buildings were destroyed and another 6–7% damaged. About 70,000 to 80,000 people, of whom 20,000 were Japanese combatants and 20,000 were Korean slave laborers, or some 30% of the population of Hiroshima, were killed immediately, and another 70,000 injured. 288, 289, 290. 2 mushroom clouds rise vertically. Little boy explodes over Hiroshima, Japan. The 6th of August, 1945, left. Fat man explodes over Nagasaki, Japan. The 9th of August, 1945, right. On the morning of the 9th of August, 1945, the Boxcar, a second B-29 piloted by the 393d Bombardment Squadron's commander, Major Charles W. Sweeney, lifted off with a fat man on board. This time Ashworth served as weaponeer and Kokyura was the primary target. When they reached Kokyura, they found cloud cover had obscured the city, prohibiting the visual attack required by orders. After 3 runs and with fuel running low, they headed for the secondary target Nagasaki. Ashworth decided that a radar approach would be used if target was obscured, but a last-minute break in the clouds over Nagasaki allowed a visual approach as ordered. The Fat Man was dropped over the city's industrial valley midway between the Mitsubishi Steel and Arms Works in the south and the Mitsubishi Urakami Ordnance Works in the north. The resulting explosion had a blast yield equivalent to 21 kilotons of TNT, roughly the same as the Trinity blast, but was confined to the Urakami Valley, and a major portion of the city was protected by the intervening hills, resulting in the destruction of about 44% of the city. The bombing also crippled the city's industrial production and killed 23,228,200 Japanese industrial workers and 150 Japanese soldiers. 291. Overall, an estimated 35,000–40,000 people were killed and 60,000 injured. 292, 293. Groves expected to have another atomic bomb ready for use on the 19th of August, with 3 more in September and a further 3 in October. 294. 2 more Fat Man assemblies were readied, and scheduled to leave Kirtland Field for Tinian on 11 and 14 August. 293, at Los Alamos. Technicians worked 24 hours straight to cast another plutonium core. 295, although cast, it still needed to be pressed and coated, which would take until 16 August. 296. It could therefore have been ready for use on the 19th of August. On the 10th of August, Truman secretly requested that additional atomic bombs not be dropped on Japan without his express authority. Groves suspended the third course shipment on his own authority on 13 August. 297. On the 11th of August, Groves phoned Warren with orders to organize a survey team to report on the damage and radioactivity at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. A party equipped with portable Geiger counters arrived in Hiroshima on the 8th of September, headed by Farrell and Warren, with Japanese Rear Admiral Masao Suzuki, who acted as a translator. They remained in Hiroshima until the 14th of September and then surveyed Nagasaki from the 19th of September to 8 October. 298. This and other scientific missions to Japan provided valuable data. 299. The necessity of the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki became a subject of controversy among historians. Some questioned whether an atomic diplomacy would not have attained the same goals and disputed whether the bombings or the Soviet declaration of war on Japan was decisive. 294. The Frank Report was the most notable effort pushing for a demonstration but was turned down by the Interim Committee's scientific panel. 300. The Szilard Petition, drafted in July 1945 and signed by dozens of scientists working on the Manhattan Project, was a late attempt at warning President Harry S. Truman about his responsibility in using such weapons. 301. 302. After the war. In anticipation of the bombings, Groves had Henry DeWolf Smith prepare a history for public consumption. Atomic energy for military purposes, known as the Smith Report, was released to the public on 12 August 1945. 303. Groves and Nichols presented Army-Navy awards to key contractors, whose involvement had hitherto been secret. Over 20 presidential medals for merit were awarded to key contractors and scientists including Bush and Oppenheimer. Military personnel received the Legion of Merit, including the commander of the Women's Army Corps Detachment, Captain Arlene G. Schiedenhelm. 304. Men in suits and uniforms stand on a dais decorated with bunting and salute. Presentation of the Army-Navy Award at Los Alamos on 16 October 1945. Standing, left to right, J. Robert Oppenheimer, unidentified, Kenneth Nichols, Leslie Groves, Robert Gordon Sproul, William Sterling Parsons. At Hanford, plutonium production declined as reactors B, D and 4 out. Poisoned by fission products and swelling of the graphite moderator known as the Wigner effect. The swelling damaged their charging tubes where the uranium was irradiated to produce a plutonium, rendering them unusable. Production was curtailed and the oldest unit, B-pile, was closed down so at least one reactor will remain available. Research continued, with DuPont and the Metallurgical Laboratory developing a redox solvent extraction process as an alternative plutonium extraction technique to the bismuth phosphate process, which left unspent uranium in a state from which it could not easily be recovered. 305. Bomb engineering was carried out by the Z Division, named for its director, Gerald R. Zacharias from Los Alamos. 306. Z Division was initially located at Wendover Field but moved to Oxnard Field, New Mexico, in September 1945 to be closer to Los Alamos. This marked the beginning of Sandia Base. Nearby Kirtland Field was used as a B-29 base for aircraft compatibility and drop tests. 307. By October, all staff and facilities at Wendover had been transferred to Sandia. 308. As reservist officers were demobilized, they were replaced by about 50 hand-picked regular officers. 309. Nichols recommended that S-50 and the Alpha tracks at Y-12 be closed down. This was done in September. 310. Although performing better than ever. 311. The Alpha tracks could not compete with K-25 and the new K-27, which had commenced operation in January 1946. In December, the Y-12 plant was closed, cutting the Tennessee Eastman payroll from 8,600 to 1,500 and saving $2 million a month. 312. A man in a suit is seated at a desk, signing a document. 7 men in suits gather around him. President Harry S. Truman signs the Atomic Energy Act of 1946 establishing the United States Atomic Energy Commission. Nowhere was demobilization more of a problem than at Los Alamos, where there was an exodus of talent. Much remained to be done. The bombs used on Hiroshima and Nagasaki needed work to make them simpler, safer and more reliable. Implosion methods needed to be developed for uranium in place of the wasteful gun method, and composite uranium-plutonium cores were needed now that plutonium was in short supply. However, uncertainty about the future of the laboratory made it hard to induce people to stay. Oppenheimer returned to his job at the University of California, and Groves appointed Norris Bradbury as an interim replacement. Bradbury remained in the post for the next 25 years. 308. Groves attempted to combat the dissatisfaction caused by the lack of amenities with a construction program that included an improved water supply, 300 houses, and recreation facilities. 305. 2 Fat Man-type detonations were conducted at Bikini Atoll in July 1946 as part of Operation Crossroads to investigate the effect of nuclear weapons on warships. 313. Able was detonated on the 1st of July 1946. The more spectacular Baker was detonated underwater on the 25th of July 1946. 314. After the bombings at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, a number of Manhattan Project physicists founded the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, 1945, and Emergency Committee of Atomic Scientists, 1946, which began as an emergency action undertaken by scientists who saw urgent need for an educational program about atomic weapons. 315. In the face of the destructiveness of the bombs and in anticipation of the nuclear arms race for all, project members including Burr, Bush and Conant expressed the view that it was necessary to reach agreement on international control of nuclear research and atomic weapons. The Barrack Plan, unveiled in a speech to the newly formed United Nations Atomic Energy Commission, UNEC, in June 1946, proposed the establishment of an International Atomic Development Authority, but was not adopted. 316. Following a domestic debate over the permanent management of the nuclear program, the Atomic Energy Act of 1946 created the United States Atomic Energy Commission to take over the functions and assets of the Manhattan Project. It established civilian control over atomic development, and separated the development, production and control of atomic weapons from the military. Military aspects were taken over by the Armed Forces Special Weapons Project, AFSP. 317. Although the Manhattan Project ceased to exist on 31 December 1946, the Manhattan District was not abolished until the 15th of August 1947. 318. Cost. Manhattan Project costs through 31 December 1945. 319. Site cost, $1,945. Cost, $2,022. Percent off total Oak Ridge $1.19 billion, $15.4 billion, 62.9%. Hanford $390 million, $5.05 billion, 20.6%. Special operating materials $103 million, $1.34 billion, 5.5%. Los Alamos $74.1 million, $959 million, 3.9%. Research and development $69.7 million,